Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling, and shall we see what's going on our lovely little island of Fawnhollow today, where we're having a rather late episode. Not for any particular reason, I just kind of forgot to record Animal Crossing today, and it wasn't until I was eating dinner and I was like, oh, I forgot to record Animal Crossing, so here we are, straight after dinner, recording some Animal Crossing. No, that's about it. How many times can I say Animal Crossing in the first 30 seconds? Apparently, 6? Was that 6 times? That's probably not 6 times, it's probably more like 4, but still, yeah, so I honestly just kind of forgot. So here we are now. Good evening, everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow, it's 7:27 p.m. on Wednesday, September 29th, 2021. Hello. Now for today's announcements, we have a new friend on our island. Let's give a big Fawnhallow welcome to Tank. Tank, on behalf of your new island family, welcome aboard. So Tank is a jock rhino, if I remember, because I had him on Wild Wild. I think we saw him once at one of our island hoppings recently. One of the ones we did through the past couple of days instead of a different day. Hopefully Celeste is here, so it's actually a shooting star sort of day. It does not look like night. Doesn't look like a shooting star sort of night, so we can't expect too much. But yeah, I had Tank before in Wild Wild, and he's alright. This is not really sort of a house I expected for him to have, but still. It's possible I got the wrong person, but this is the green-haired rhino. Oh, it's actually a leaf. I never realised it was a leaf. A Wild Wild resolution was too bad. Yikes, who are you? Oh, I see, you're just another Fawnhollower. I never locked my door, so... Anyway, let's start over. My name is Tank, and I'm all about strength training. You really got my heart racing for a sec there, so thanks. I'm feeling that burn. Whew. What if you ever need a fitness rival? You got one. I'll see you around, kapow. We'll let you unpack and all that thing. All that good stuff. It looks like you got a sort of bamboo motif going on, and we have another villager now, of course, to try and get a photo from. What, of course, Nook Mile mission points wise do we have? Hopefully we haven't missed out on whoever our visitor is for today. Sell fruits, change clothes, fruit trees, craft. Is it red? It's not red. It's not crazy red. It might not... Yeah, I'm not sure. Who have we had this week? We've had Flick and... Kix, I think. What day is it today? Is today Wednesday? I'm just completely lost track of things. Yeah, basically I just kind of forgot to record an Animal Crossing video. Sometimes it happens because sometimes I record at 3 p.m, sometimes I record at 5 p.m. Most of the times nowadays I'm trying to favour 5 p.m. because it's a bit more of a convenient timing, I think. And it turns out I get better flow of things if I record Animal Crossing normally after I record other videos, that sort of thing, which is normally why it comes afterwards. So the fact that not many people will record Animal Crossing is normally because by the time I get to recording to Animal Crossing, I'm a bit more chill about things. I don't need to hype things up as much because if you watch any of the Celeste episodes, the majority of the Celeste episodes, I'm just completely absolutely bonkers talking about random stuff. Not always the case. It depends how tired I am that day, I suppose. But I haven't recorded a Celeste episode in a couple of weeks now, so, got to get back into that sometime. Talos Prince, but as well, to be honest. It's only been Life is Strange for the past few weeks, so I've been sort of easing up on recording because, I've got a big backlog, I don't want to... It's a deficit because when people give me feedback on that sort of things, if I have a huge backlog, I can't really implement it until 4 weeks later or something, which is probably a little bit frustrating to watch, I'm sure, but... apologies, it's just how it works out for me. I record when I have a time and when I'm up for it, and when I don't, I just don't. And you might be like, how does that work with Animal Crossing when you record every day? And sometimes it just doesn't. It's basically all I can say there. Do we have any? We don't have any coconuts, so we need at least 8, I believe. As we wander around trying to find our other visitor. Yeah. I just kind of forgot. I guess I was doing other stuff. I was doing some programming. I was doing some drawing. I watched, by the way, but the first My Hero Academia movie, because I finished season 4 now of My Hero Academia, and I'm going for a lightning pace because one of the days recently I just maybe it was on a weekend or something, I just binge watched most of season 4 because I could not stop watching. If you've seen season 4, you probably could understand why. It's not my parts of it. It's not my favorite act, but I'm gonna say the school festival act is probably my favorite act out of the entire My Hero Academia so far. But as I say, I always like ensemble shows, so whenever a show is all about showcasing off the numerous characters they have and their interactions with each other, I'm just like, I'm in, you got me, you son of a bee, I'm in. What's that Rick and Morty meme thing? I don't know, you've probably seen it, you know what I'm talking about. If you know, I know that I don't know. So watch the movie. despite the fact that normally I didn't really like to watch movies because I was, well, I mean, I just don't really like watching movies because I'm just like, oh, 1.5 hours, I can't commit that. And then I proceed to watch 3 episodes in a row, and then I'm just like, oh, you know, that's not the same. Somehow. But I finally got around to watching it. And I don't normally get around to watching anime movies. One, they're kind of hard to access, to actually find and watch in the first place. Like, Madoka Magica, my favourite series. Anime series. Well, I'm not sure if it's my favourite. It's either that or Beastars, but Beastars is a bit tenuous because I've only read the manga, so it's a bit difficult for me to call it my favourite anime, I think. And I've only watched the first episode. I need to watch more of it, but I just haven't. And but I think it's probably Madoka is my favourite anime. It's a hard call, to be honest. I like them both a lot. I've never watched the Madoka movie, and I watched Madoka ages ago. I watched it probably back in GCSE time or something. And Madoka is quite an old one. It's quite infamous, I suppose. If you don't know what Madoka is, it's basically the magical girl. Not the magical girl anime, the movie that goes to Precure or whatever it's called. Not Precure. Sailor Moon. I don't know how I got those confused. I don't really know that someone else is going to have to chime in with that sort of information, because I am not sure. We don't need to do fossils, so we'll just sort of run past it. But it's good. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend watching it, especially if you think I'm not really the type to like magical girl sort of animes, I would recommend giving it a shot. This one out of all of them. I can't really give away much more than that because it's spoilers, but it's certainly unexpected is how I describe it. Biscuit, I just noticed your interior decoration. You seem to have blocked yourself off of the tap from having the buckets and the... What are you... Oh, this is Biscuit breaking the fourth wall, being like, we're in a game, we're in a simulation. It's a pretty good one, though. I never really thought about this. How does localization work in Animal Crossing? Or translation work? Wise, because I remember I played Pocket Camp, and there were like these memory things you can have with Pocket Camp, where you'd like if you get 4 villagers to move into your town, to stay at your camp while you have a certain furniture to out, you want like a memory, like I want to call them story commune, but that's like gacha terminology, like story, a mini movie for you to watch about them. And I remember watching one, and I can't remember who it was with. It was with Fauna, Amelia, 2 other people, one lazy villager who I can't remember, and one cranky villager, I think, or maybe a jock villager or something like that. They were like around a cooking pot. Does that make sense? I can't remember. And I remember I read it in English. I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. And I was like, hold on a minute, maybe I should read it in Japanese as well, just to sort of practice my Japanese. And I remember that they did the localization differently. I remember things translated differently. Like I think it was Amelia and Fauna. And I remember in the Japanese version, Amelia like teasing Fauna a little bit, being like, "Oh, do you have like a crush or something? Are you falling in love with someone?" And Fauna getting all flustered, which wasn't there in the English version. Like they didn't even talk about romance, as I recall. But they had different reactions and timings of that sort of things to actually sync it up properly. So you know, the localization team, they clearly put a bit more work into it, at least in Pocket Camp for this one specific thing, than just literally translating their dialogue at each and every point. They actually like remade the entire cutscene. Maybe not the entire cutscene, but redid parts of a cutscene for it to fit in different languages. I wonder how that works in New Horizons, or any of these Animal Crossings, because they've localized to a lot of different languages. I'd imagine for the majority of languages they sort of just or maybe they just have like 3 different cutscenes and they just pick whichever one fits the language best translation wise. I don't know. Or maybe I'm misremembering, and that's not how it works, if they do just literally translate screen for screen. I don't know, translation's difficult, have you? That's all I can really say about that sort of thing. Is this really the topic we're going to talk about now? Why does the moon look so weird? Oh, it's behind a cloud, I see. Oh, CJ, you are a visitor for today, I see. Are we going to do localization? Is that what we're going to talk about? You know, if we're talking about localization, you always got to talk about 4Kids and their localization when it comes to anime and that sort of thing. How they always like anglicize, that's how you pronounce that one. that's that adjective. The names, the Japanese names. Which I will say, when I was younger, I was like, that makes sense, you know? We don't know Japanese names. Why not like change them to English equivalents of that sort of thing? Well, you know, now I'm much older, you know. Yeah, I will say I was like 6 probably when I thought like that, which I don't think is terribly like wrong with that way of thinking. But I suppose my way of thinking now is sort of like, let kids just like learn their Japanese names. You know, kids can handle that. Kids are kind of smart. If they like a character, they'll either they're only falling into 1 or 2 camps anyway. They'll either know the character's name because they really like the character and will learn it no matter what language it's in, or they'll like the character but they don't care about names in the first place, so they'll just call it, oh, you know, Fire Girl, or like I don't know, Robot Boy or something like that. Some defining feature from them rather than their actual name. So basically what I'm just saying is like, no big deal. Why translate their names? Just keep them in the Japanese names rather than trying to anglicize them. Like, if you think about it, like Shouting Showdown, I think about that all the time. I mean, to be fair, that was an American-made. I think it was an American-made cartoon. I'd actually be kind of surprised if it was like a Chinese one dubbed over. But they used like there's a Japanese girl in it called Kimiko. You know, remember her name? Completely fine. Other people I spoke to who watched the show knew her name, even though it's not a standard Western name. Very much a Japanese name. What does it mean, Kimiko? Isn't it like something? Mi is in beauty, ko is like a suffix ended for child, which is usually in girls' names. I can't remember what ki means in this context. Something about beauty. You know what? This is where you sort of like look it up. Kimiko. Kimiko, not the female. The female of a species, the boys. What? Is a main character and a member of a vigilante group. She's called the female? What's her power? Let's see, hold on. It's completely irrelevant. I just got a little bit sidetracked. Sidetracked. Kimiko. Oh, weirdly her name's spelled katakana. No, she doesn't have any kanji. I'm trying to see name. I'm trying to see what normally what normal kanji is given to him. I'm not going to explain the Japanese language to you if you don't understand what I'm talking about when it's kanji. Basically, like a different way of writing, which can give meaning, I suppose, to it. Actually, there's quite a few ways to do it here, you know. Oh, look, Kimiko Tahomiko from Shouting Showdown. Did they give her a thing? It aired on Kids WB. It's not for kids, I don't think so. It is an American animated TV show, so there you go. The main character is called Omi, which, by the way, is also not a Chinese name I've ever heard of. But maybe it means something. I mean, Sheng Gong Wu. I remember that. You know, you can throw foreign languages at kids. They absorb it up like sponges, you know. So it's always a bit interesting when they for kids like localize things like that. That's a sort of running meme. Like, it happened a lot in Yu-Gi-Oh! I didn't really watch that much Yu-Gi-Oh! So it didn't happen in Pokemon, did it? Well, I mean, actually, no, I think it did. Satoshi is Ash. It's just, I was so young when I watched Pokemon, I didn't even realise it did. Satoshi is Ash. I don't know what Brock is. Or Japanese names are in any of these sort of cases, but, you know, all these localizations, you don't need it. Kids are smart. They can work it out. If Ash was called Satoshi, I mean, to be fair, it worked out in this case because you're not just appealing to kids. I suppose you know, we should do the King Salmon. You're also appealing, I suppose, to all the marketability to all the Western consumer group. For all ages, and having a Western name perhaps is something. Obviously, the reason I choose it is because of marketability. It's easier, you know. Most people are going to be able to remember like Ash better than Satoshi, or whatever. But kids, you know, the only thing we do as kids is like watch cartoons, you know. Well, okay, that's evidently not true depending on your life situation. It's quite common for kids to, you know, watch Saturday morning cartoons of that sort of thing. Like, they can remember those names, is basically what I'm saying. So, you know, localization, why has it got to be like that? Maybe they're all trying to think, maybe we'll be the next new Pokemon, in which case the parents are going to have to remember the names as well, and we're going to make it easier for them by giving them an English name. To heck with that, I say. To heck with that. What am I doing? We need to find Phoebe to give her a present. She's not home. She's not in the shop either. Is she in Able Sisters? Maybe. I don't know if we checked her out. What Nook Wild mission? We have a Nook Wild ticket to withdraw. I know that. Shouting Showdown we should talk about some other time as well. Shouting Showdown is a cool one. Baby name. Name meanings. Kimiko. Diminutive form of a name Kimi. Is it? I guess so. Oh, excuse me. I guess so. Behind her name. Kimiko. Kimi meaning valuable and Mi meaning beauty. Or Kimi meaning lord or noble. There we go. Obviously have multiple meanings depending on how you write it in kanji. Valuable beauty. That's what it means. Yeah, so basically localization. Weird, you know. I'm pretty sure kids in the West can handle cultures from other countries if, you know, you're going to dub over like Japanese anime or that sort of thing. You don't need to localize everything. I understand localization if it doesn't make sense, and in which case you can't always, you either do a translated note, which kids basically aren't going to pay attention to be honest, or you just be like, or you know, you just sort of let the kids be confused. Like, hey kids, we'll get over it. I say we, I'm not a kid anymore, but like I'm putting myself back in my mind of like my 6-year-old. When I didn't understand something in a cartoon, just forgot about it, to be honest. Or I ask someone and maybe it'll be explained. Most kids don't care about that part isn't not important, like necessarily understanding the details of it, but just the exposure to it in the first place is still pretty cool. Oh yeah, I guess we should talk about like Pokemon localization, you know, the infamous jelly donut when Brock made Onigiri. Like, I feel like a lot of kids know what rice is, especially in the Western world. Well, maybe not so much back in the 90s, I don't know, I'm not going to really speak for that because I was like, not alive for the majority of the 90s. But with jelly donuts, it's like, couldn't you just have like rice? why would you have to localize it as jelly donut? I understand changing it. You can't have Brock, well, you could have Brock, in my opinion, go onigiri, but all the kids are going to be confused and be like, what? But like, you cannot just been like, oh, I made some rice, or I made some rice balls or anything like that. Why jelly donut? Doesn't even look like a jelly donut. Which, as I understand it, is a jam donut. Which actually, this is an interesting thing. Isn't jelly and jam like the jam we have in Britain is meant to be analogous to jelly in America, while in America, Jello is what we call jelly here in Britain. Isn't it weird? It's not weird. Isn't it slightly different? Like, isn't jelly in America? Jelly in America is slightly different from jam in Britain. Like, I don't know how you'd even describe jam. I guess it's a fruit preserve, something like that. And I'm not really an expert. You put a load of sugar and mashed up fruit into a jar and it becomes jam. Is that how you do it? Don't quote me on that. I don't know how to make jar. I don't know how to make a jar either, but I don't know how to make jam. What other things do we do? Buy items, fish, shrubs. Okay. There's a bit of an annoying combination, I'm going to be honest, but we can do it. We can do it. Da, 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 da. I'm trying to think of what other sort of like localizations happens. Let me think while I drink some water. Because at some point, just like doing a localization, trying to adapt it into an equivalent or something in a different culture, at some point you might as well just, it's like more effort than it's worth. Surely you just rather keep it like originally how it was, and then just basically have a translator explaining it, especially for things which aren't necessarily marketed towards young kids. Like teens can handle that. Teens, you know, I'm gonna project my mind back into teenage me. If I like saw something from a different country and I didn't understand it in like some media property I was watching, and they just had like a translator note explaining like, oh, this is a common holiday in this country celebrating blah 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 blah, I'll be like, oh cool, you know, and then I'll go look it up myself or something later. It's like, I think about this, like I used to play this mobile game called Love Live School Idol Festival. You might have heard of it if you are into idol anime and that sort of thing. I don't play it anymore, mind you, but I used to play the English version, Japanese version, which was an official English version dubbed by, not necessarily the team, but officially licensed the dub, I suppose. Not dubbed, sorry, subbed, like, but translated. They were still using Japanese voices, from what I recall. But there's one story in the game where they play the Japanese game with Shiri Tori. And if you, yeah, walk, run away, I don't know what you're talking about. What are you putting on? It looks strange, but you do, man. You look great. Everyone looks great. Shitty Tolly, which I've talked about amusingly before in Animal Crossing. I remember talking about it. It's basically a Japanese game where you say a word. Shitty Tolly is normally the starting word, the name of the game, and then you have to use the last syllable in that word to start. The turn passes to the next person, and that next person has to say a word beginning with the last syllable of your last word. So, you know, Shitty Tolly, which just, I don't know what Shitty Tolly actually means, and then the next person might go Lingo, which just means apple. And the next person might go gorilla, which means gorilla, etc., etc. You know, you take the last syllable and put them at the front. Now, this game keeps going on until someone acts, and presumably you have to keep up like a pace. You can't like hesitate. You can't like think forever. You keep going until someone says a word which ends with a syllable n, because this is a syllable in Japanese language where no words in Japanese language belong with a syllable, belong with a letter. I don't know why I'm calling it syllable. It's syllable in English, but it's a letter, I suppose, or character. Letter might be a better translation in Japanese. No word starts with n. It's more of a a syllable ender, I suppose. So that's why. And I remember they're playing the game, and one of the characters really likes rice, which I don't know why that's one of her big character traits, but you know, sometimes idol animes just have very, very definitive traits, and some of them are just kind of strange. She just really likes to eat rice, and rice in Japanese is gohan and ends with that n sound. So they're playing the Shitty Tolly game, and then, you know, it gets to her turn, and the person before her ends, she has to say a word starting with go, so she just says, oh, gohan. And then they just joke around and be like, wow, character. I don't know why I'm avoiding her name. Hanayo is her name. You really like rice, don't you? It's like, wow, is it even on your mind? Unfortunately, you lost the Shitty Tolly game or that sort of thing, and they translated it in English because it's not even really Shitty Tolly in English. You have like a word game sort of thing where you can explain it. I don't think there's like a proper name for the game, unless you just call it the word game and then you explain it. But most people will be like, oh yeah, okay, I understand. But obviously, since it doesn't really exist, that doesn't really stop. At least the way I used to play it. When I was younger, you'd have to basically go back and forth faster and faster. Like you do like a clapping game along with it, and then I thought I pressed the wrong button, Ben, and erased one of the patterns. And you just have to keep going faster, faster. And when someone can't think of a word fast enough, that's when they lose. But yeah. Or sometimes you can do it when it ends in X or something. But now it's like, how are we going to translate this? How are you going to translate this into English? How are you going to localize it? And honestly, at this point, you know, if I was a fan translator, if I wasn't one of the official people, I'd just be like, just use the Japanese and just explain what it means, what happened in Japanese. Like, I'm going to be honest, if you're playing one of these anime games, or like, if you're experiencing media from like another country or that sort of thing, you probably have an interest into that culture as well, a little bit of insight, I'd imagine. Not always, mind you, depending on how like popular it is and how mainstream it is, but like this is quite a niche thing in the first place, you know. How many people are playing this school idol festival who don't have some sort of, oh no, that was a rainbow flag, who don't have some sort of awareness of Japanese culture or something like that, or like who are anime fans who probably have some sort of awareness in some aspects. You could have just explained it and put a translator in it. It would be so much easier, but I can't remember what they did exactly. But it was something like she didn't yell out like rice. She yelled out something, and they were like, oh no, Hanayo, you lost because the word you said was too similar. The word like the syllable your word ended on was too similar to one of the syllables that we had already. And I remember reading it being like, what? Like, I mean, fair enough, props to the translation team for like doing something, and it is, to be fair, not like a terrible localization. It, like, at least, yeah, it's a bit like out there, but it works, I guess. It's so strange, and you've got to imagine at that point, when you get to that sort of level of weirdness, I suppose, when trying to localize the thing, you just be like, you know what, just like, it's a shooting star. But Celeste isn't here. Okay, so we have 5 minutes. I heard a twinkle and I was like, what? We should play more late at night so we can get, because shooting star stuff is mainly the stuff we're missing. We've only got like 3 minutes even. Wish. So we don't have much time to get these shooting stars. But I'm going to do my best to see what happens. But yeah, localization wise, you got to imagine at some point it's just not worth it to try and like adapt something. Just like explain it and put translator note. I mean, obviously there's the flip side of a coin where people get like a little bit zealous with just like not translating things and being like, you know, the whole kikaku means plan or whatever. But those are more fan sub things, if anything. Obviously, you should take what I say with a huge grain of salt, because there's other factors, I'm sure, which goes into translating that sort of thing. And, you know, there's probably like retention rates of non-translated parts are significantly lower than actual translated parts, or something like that. I can imagine if someone watches a show and they didn't translate that, or read that story and that Love Life story, and they're just like, oh, you know, I don't really understand what's going on, so I'm just going to stop playing this game now, or something along those lines. That's not good, you know, from a marketing perspective or a financial perspective. So the big wigs in managing are just going to be like, stop that. And really, this isn't even like a problem. Like, I'm going to be perfectly honest, like, no one cares about this. I'm just talking about it. None of the things I'm talking about, like, ever are, like, of any importance, let's be honest. And I'm just talking for talking's sake, to be honest. But it would be the sort of thing which would fit me better, because there's so many times like I'm like reading like subtitles if I'm not watching anime, or if like I'm reading like a translated story, I'm just like, I don't understand what this means. It's like, how does this make any sense? And I'm like, there's important context being missing, and it happens all the time with things like jokes and puns. Obviously very difficult to translate, and always like want to try and search them up afterwards, because obviously I'm not fluent in like Japanese or anything, so I don't understand it. Like, this happened in Kaguya-sama Lovers War or something. There was like some pun section back and forth. I can't remember quite the details of it, but I remember being like, oh, I wonder what this means. It's clearly very different from the actual translations, but whoever did the translations actually did a pretty good job localizing it, and then I had to go like find someone who was actually talking about it and the explanation of it, you know. I guess it's more my process of being like, I want to learn about it, you know, that sort of thing. And this is the sort of thing which could be a better teaching moment, and rather just like straight up translations. It also seems like there's no shooting stars anymore. so it's not really a meteor shower, it's more like a meteor drip. I couldn't think of any word. Yeah, so I guess it just sort of appeals to me more, just to be like, oh, you know, I want to learn a bit more when I can. I like learning things, there's no surprise there. So of course I'm just like, this is a teachable moment. I'm not sure what we can do with this last like 2 minutes. I guess we can plant a tree. That seems feasible. Or sort of let Apollo do his business. Can we plant? We can plant a tree in 2 minutes, you know. A million trees project. How did that go? Did they plant a million trees? I think they did, probably. Mr. Beast or whatever, whoever organised that. We can certainly do with more trees right now, you might think. But I'd rather let the experts really talk about that sort of thing. Really good Kurt's Cat video on climate change, if you haven't seen it. Like, you must have seen it. It's been so viral lately. It's a very, very good video, full of details, and actually gives a very balanced and, you know, it brought up ideas to me where I was like, huh, you know, I never considered that before. It's not a simple problem, climate change. But it doesn't mean that there should be inaction towards it. But here I am, I suppose, being a little bit hypocritical, in a sense. I can only cut out parts of my meager footprint. Here I am, you know, I'm playing on a Switch, I'm playing on a computer, and that sort of thing, all using up electricity. What am I to do? Am I a hypocrite? I don't know. That's the sort of things which I don't really tend to discuss on Animal Crossing. Mainly because that's the sort of thing where I feel like you need more preparation to really come up with points and have a salient thought, rather than just talking off the top of the head. Talking off the top of your head, that's more reserved for just random things like localization in Pokemon. But anyway, should we round this episode off here? So if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares are greatly appreciated. Join the Dear Darling Discord. Follow me on Twitter down below. Hope we can see each other again. But for now, it's our farewell. That's the wrong button. So until next time, bye bye for now. Get out of it, mosquito.